Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to discuss the geopolitical landscape and how it has been significantly altered by the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, which has reverberated across the globe, affecting international relations, security policies, and economic ties. France, a key player in European and global politics, has demonstrated its shifting stance towards Russia during this period, which has profound implications not only for its foreign policy, but also for its historical sphere of influence, particularly in Africa, where it has maintained strong post-colonial ties. So today in this video, we're going to take a look into what's really going on behind the scenes and why France wants to go to war with Russia. Guys, if you find value in this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. Also, if you guys like these types of videos and want to see more of them, let me know in the comments below. All right, now back to the video. France's response to the war in Ukraine has evolved over time. Initially, France, under President Emmanuel Macron, sought a diplomatic solution to the conflict, maintaining open channels of communications with Russia. Macron's approach was characterized by attempts to avoid humiliation of Russia, advocating a European security order that included Russia and engaging in direct dialogue with President Vladimir Putin. This approach, however, faced criticism both domestically and from European partners, particularly those in Eastern Europe, who perceived this as an underestimation of the Russian threat. However, recent developments have seen a hardened stance, with Macron suggesting that Western troops could be deployed in Ukraine and expressing no limits to support for Ukraine. France vowed to send 20,000 troops to Ukraine to help with the shortage of manpower and to bolster the Ukrainian army. Most European countries do not want to go along with this plan and have stated publicly France troops deployed in Ukraine, when attacked and killed, which they certainly will be, will not trigger a NATO Article 5 response. You see, Article 5 states that if a NATO country is attacked, all the other NATO member countries must come to that country's aid, including the United States. Putin sees this move as a major escalation and warned Macron and the West of the dire consequences, which will most likely involve nuclear weapons. So why the complete 180 towards Russia? Well, could it be that France cares so much about Ukraine? Or could it be that France is literally fighting for its survival? You see, Russia has escalated this war with France laterally by increasing its troops' presence in France's former African colonies, replacing the mercenary group Wagner, whose leader Prigozhin died last year. You see, if France is unable to plunder Africa and steal its resources or buy them at incredibly favorable terms, France's economy will be ruined, and France will lose its status as a top-tier country on a global stage. So let's take a look at French sentiment on the African continent.
Long live Putin and down with France. Some of the chants echoed by thousands of coup supporters marching through the streets of Niger's capital, Niamey. The unrest follows France's suspension of all development and financial aid to Niger, prompting some protesters to storm the French embassy and setting fire to its entrance.
Niger is resilient. We are resilient. If today the national budget has been inflated, tripled, quadrupled quickly, it's because of stealing. What we produce is more than enough for us to survive. So we really call on the armed forces, the security forces, the CNSP, really not to give in to any blackmail.
The people are suffering in this country. Nigerians shouldn't be living like this. The people are coming out to support the coup leaders because they are here to bring balance to the country.
The French government has condemned the coup and warned of retaliation if any of its citizens are harmed. Years of colonial and neo-colonial influence appear to have resulted in a decline in France's influence in West Africa, and some now see Russia as an alternative. China too is competing for influence, funding or lending money for large development projects. In 2017, after winning the French elections, President Emmanuel Macron said he would reset relations with Africa. The colonial past would be replaced by what he called a new vision of balanced partnership.
La réorganisation que j'évoquais tout à l'heure.
The reorganization is not meant to be a retreat or disengagement. It will materialize through an Africanization or mutual operation of these big bases.
But recent developments have challenged this approach. Last year, French troops were forced to leave Mali and Burkina Faso when their military rulers opted for a new alliance with Russia in the form of the mercenary Wagner Group. Now, with Niger's coup leaders strongly speaking out against France, it's not clear where that leaves its influence in the region or its fight against armed groups.
France's historical presence in Africa dates back to the colonial era, with a legacy that has persisted through various forms of economic, political, and military engagement. The use of CFA franc, which requires African countries to deposit 50% of their GDP into French coffers, gaining interest, while these African countries do not benefit from this type of partnerships. Defense pacts and the maintenance of military bases are remnants of this colonial past, which have allowed France to exert considerable influence over its former colonies. You see, Africans are tired of these fake gestures and promises from France. Maintaining bases and these former colonies is seen by many Africans as a ploy by France to steal their resources and install puppet governments. France has maintained that these bases are there to provide security from terrorists. Yeah, sure they are. African coup leaders, however, seem to strongly disagree and have opted for Russian troops and equipment instead. However, recent years have seen a significant erosion of this influence, as African nations have increasingly sought autonomy and diversification of international partnerships. The domino effect of coups in Francophone African states, with 78% of the 27 coups in West Africa since 1990 occurring in former French colonies, underscores the diminishing French influence in the region. Public sentiment against France has grown, with incidents such as the looting of French stores in Senegal and demonstration against French presence in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. The rise of anti-French sentiment has been attributed to France's support for corrupt regimes, ignorance of public demands, and economic policies perceived as exploitative. Resentment of colonial rule has become palpable, as the East-West clash has catalyzed long-standing tensions as countries increasingly are being forced to choose sides. You see, for most African countries, the choice is easy. Russia is one of the few countries that never had any colonies in Africa. Also, Russia has supported many of the independence movements during the Cold War that have led to the formation of many governments today. Africans are very interested in cooperations with Russia, which is a major source of grain, commodities, fertilizer, nuclear technology, and arms. The combination of the inu from Western bullion, coupled with indifference of their fate and the cornucopia of gifts that Moscow is bearing, has made for an attractive offer for most African nations that they just cannot ignore. Amidst France's declining influence, Russia has been expanding its presence across the African continent, positioning itself as an anti-imperialist ally and capitalizing on the void left behind by France. You see, the French economy, while still one of the world's largest, faces significant challenges, including labor shortages, a decline in manufacturing, and the threat of an austerity budget. The shortage of labor is one of the most common challenges of the economic sector in France. According to a European Commission report published in July of 2023, shortages are expected to persist in both high skills and low skills occupation, driven by the creation of new jobs and the need to replace workers who retire. However, politicians in the French parliament have approved recent legislation in favor of strict control on migration. This move turns out to be one of the gravest challenges in the way of employing migrants to overcome labor shortages. French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire has announced France will be facing an austerity budget in 2024. If France continues to operate on rising borrowing costs and slowing growth, then there is a real possibility it will run into one of the biggest budget deficits in Europe this year. Oh, and it doesn't end there. See, the situation is not looking good, not only just for France and Europe, but the entire West as a whole.
This strait is called the Bab el-Mandab, meaning the Gate of Tears. Vessels have to go through the passage to get to the Suez Canal, which handles about 12% of world trade and is a major maritime choke point. But this is also one of the most dangerous shipping areas on the globe. In the months following the Hamas-Israel war, a commercial ship was hijacked here, another was targeted by a drone here, and these circles represent other attacks by militants on boats in the strategic zone. Avoiding it means adding thousands of nautical miles by traveling around the Cape at the bottom of Africa, an expensive and time-consuming venture. Instead, some vessels are looking to bolster security to avoid disruption in the Red Sea and mitigate against delays that could see consumer prices rise. Here's how. Recent attacks on commercial vessels in the key waterway have been launched by the Houthis, an Iran-backed militant group in Yemen. The Houthis are using positions next to the Bab el-Mandab to target merchant vessels, and what it says is a response to the Hamas-Israel war.
They have attacked boats with missiles, with drones, and in one case actually seized a boat in a very dramatic heist.
This body cam footage shows the moment armed militants land a helicopter on the deck of a cargo ship before storming into the bridge. The vessel was traveling on the Red Sea, a vital passage for shipping goods through the Suez Canal from Asia into Europe to the rest of the world.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? Because this type of incident will cause items to become more expensive, adding to inflation. Already, inflation came in hot in the US in the first quarter of this year. The collapse of diplomatic relations between France and Niger also comes with a practical headache. While France has diversified away from Niger's supply of uranium in recent years, which it has used to fuel its nuclear power plants that provide 80% of France's power, Niger is still one of the biggest exporters in the world and remains a significant source of uranium. France would now be more dependent on the US for supplies of nuclear fuel, which the Biden administration admitted that it has doubled its import of nuclear fuel from Russia. You see, not only is Russia a major producer of raw uranium, but it dominates the global business of refining uranium into burnable yellow cake isotope used as fuel in nuclear power plants. The loss of influence in Africa could further impact France's economy, as the continent has been a crucial market for France's exports and investments. The withdrawal of French troops from African nations and the closure of embassies signals a retreat from traditional sphere of influence, which could have long-term economic repercussions. France's changing stance on Russia during the Ukrainian war and the presence of Russian troops in former French colonies represent a critical juncture in international relations. The erosion of French influence in Africa, coupled with economic challenges at home, poses significant questions about France's future role on the global stage. You see, that's why France is literally fighting for its survival, its economic future, while navigating a world where it must balance its historical ties with the need to adapt to a rapidly changing geopolitical environment. The outcome of these shifts will have lasting implications for France's economy, its international partnership, and its strategic position in the world. That is all for today, guys. Please let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Are we heading towards World War III? Is France about to become a poor country? As usual, please like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, I will see you soon.